Well, welcome everyone. We are hosting Miss Holly Caudle from Rapport as our guest today. Let me introduce our co-host, Jason Safford with Exceptional Results Now and Winning with Exceptionalism. And my name, Coach April Ballestero, the owner and founder of One Light Ahead. You have joined us for addressing the elephant in the room. And Miss Holly gets to choose what the elephant in the room is today.
Hi, everyone. And I am going to choose one that is going to be very appropriate as we head into the new year. And that is why your New Year's resolutions suck. There's not a nicer way to say that. But let's be honest, statistically, most people, about 80% of people by week 2 of January have already started to fail on their New Year's resolutions. And we get to talk about why and ways to fix that.
And what a wonderful community to start that process with multiple coaches and trainers in the room. And so to give everybody a little bit of education and background of all the people in the room, Jason's been in the coaching industry for lots of years, myself as well. And Holly has been with the training industry and coaching industry for quite a few years. And yet, Holly, you're going to tell us specifically why you're so skilled to speak on this subject.
Well, this has been a huge personal journey of my own. I am a huge time efficiency person. And I began to realize that the quickest way to become more time efficient is to have better habits. So I just began on this whole journey of reading every book I could find, Tiny Habits, Atomic Habits, doing Brendan Burchard's program about high performance habits. And I just began to figure out what works for me. And then I began to look at everyone else's strategies and condense them into my own program that I use personally. And I've gotten the opportunity to coach many individuals on their own habit structure. And I've also gotten to lead even 6-month groups through habits, which has been one of my favorite things to do. So just a lot of on the ground experience, really pulling from other people that are top in the field in what they recommend to do.
And before Jason goes into the deep dive of what we call the hot sauce Jason, we are going to make sure we set you up for one more specific question in regards to what does it mean? Why is it an elephant? Why does it suck? Tell us more about how you want to address that and then how you want to make sure that people really walk away from that.
Well, I believe that if you're not achieving and being happy or not feeling joy in your life, a lot of times it's because you're not executing on what matters the most. And so the quickest way to get closer to who you are and what you want to achieve is with a basic set of habits that allow you to set up a better framework for achieving your goals. I firmly believe that companies would do better training their people in better habits, because when people have their home life in order, then the rest of their life is in order. You will never achieve your big goals unless you have your tiny habits and tiny goals in order in your life. If you don't have the foundation to set your day up right from the beginning, you're never going to be able to go out there and achieve the biggest goals that you want. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, is that I think a lot of people's frustration is, I want this big goal. Well, you're missing all the small ones. So when you get down to the nitty gritty of setting your life up in an effective manner, that's when you get to go out there and achieve more successfully.
Awesome.
Jason, take it away.
So, Holly, I want to back up and ask you an important question, which is, why do we need New Year's resolutions?
Well, you don't. It's just that most people do. And what I would change that away from is that it's not that you need a New Year's resolution, but most people are successful in taking on a new habit when there is a pivotal moment. I like to call them pivotal moments. It could be when you come back from a vacation. It could be when you start a new relationship. It could be when you leave a job and start a new one. Whenever you can find any type of pivotal moment in your life to connect it with a change because a lot of times when you come out of one of those things, you're already making changes. So it's a good time to add a new change in. So most people look at 2021, the very beginning of the year, as a pivotal moment. It's actually not the best time to set up New Year's resolutions or new goals. It's just when most people do. So my thing would be, if New Year's isn't your pivotal moment, then find what your pivotal moment is and utilize that. That would be the stronger structure, actually.
And from the standpoint of developing a new habit, what are the things that I should be thinking about in terms of that habit creating a result for me?
Well, that could be looked at many different ways. So whenever I begin to work with people, I always ask them to, first of all, just do a goal dump. I ask them to write down any type of goal they've ever wanted in their life. anything. It could be anything from running a 25-minute 5K to starting their own business. It can be all kinds of different ways to look at it. And so once you get clear on the goals, then you can start to pick out which goal of this would either be the easiest to achieve or would have the most impact for me to achieve. So it depends on where you are in your life. So for some people, it may be easiest to choose what's the easiest one to implement. Flossing could be one, for example. That could be a habit that people have always wanted to implement. That would be pretty easy to implement. Getting up and running every morning would be a lot harder, but which one's going to give you the most benefit now? And so that would be where I would ask people to choose to look at which one they would begin to select to execute on.
And from the standpoint of how my resolution sucks, is it that I'm creating a habit with no end in mind, or is it that I just don't even know how to execute the habit, so I'm just doing something to feel like I'm doing something different?
Well, typically there's two things that make New Year's resolutions in particular suck. It's first of all that people choose too many to implement into their life at once. Well, actually, there's three things. Too many at once. They choose too big of a goal to do at that time. And then they also choose something that I would call a removal behavior. And whenever you're heading into goals, you don't want to remove things that have been coping mechanisms. So if I went into the new year saying I'm cutting out caffeine, I'm cutting out chocolate, and then I'm also going to cut out Facebook, like something maybe that's draining my time. Well, for people, all three of those could be coping mechanisms. Whenever you begin to look at behaviors and changing those and adding new habits, it's always better to add new behaviors, not take away your support systems that you've had. And then eventually, the more you add positive behaviors, you will begin to naturally push out the negative behaviors. But most often people go headlong into, well, I'm going to take away all the negative behaviors, but they don't look at what those negative behaviors provide. So it's one of those things that if you are going to take out a negative behavior or what you deem as one, you have to have a replacement behavior. So some people may move from drinking a ton of soda to then moving to then drinking sparkling water, something that's similar. So you have to figure out how to do that. So typically, yes, it's those three things: too big of a goal, too many at once, or they're removal goals that take away coping mechanisms.
That's interesting. So if I understand you correctly, the positive energy of developing a new habit is more powerful than trying to cut out the negative energy of an old habit. And it's really just redirecting your energy towards the new habit, and it'll naturally take over
Right.
the old habit. I never looked at it like that before.
Yeah, not always, and a lot of the time. So I tell people, you don't have to give up Snickers. Just make sure you've already eaten all the healthy things you want to eat that day before you eat the Snickers. So you don't have to remove these things. Just see if you can begin to naturally make it where I already ate a salad and this and this and this, and I'm actually not hungry. Great. Well, then you don't need the Snickers, but the option was still there. So you remove the telling people no. People don't like to be told no. They don't like to have things taken away from them. So yes, finding something that's adding a behavior is always going to create more of a positive force moving forward than removal.
So let's take it in terms of we're in the middle of a pandemic. Obviously, 2020 has been a whirlwind of a year that most people did not expect. And hypothetically speaking, people are going to look at 2021 New Year's resolutions as, something that they can really change in terms of going forward into a much more positive space. But I'm going to throw a hypothetical at you. So, for a lot of people, I think that what they've learned about themselves in this year is how difficult it is to be alone and disconnected from physical contact with everybody. Their New Year's resolution might be to find new ways to connect with people. But that may be a really big goal for somebody if their family's on the other side of the country or international. How do they break it down?
Great question. And so for me, that would be taking that end goal. What is it that they want to feel? And most likely when you break goals down, it always comes down to something you want to feel. Goals are typically based on emotions. I want to feel successful. I want to feel loved. I want to feel connected. I want to feel freedom, because we know when people go after money, it's typically for freedom that they really want. So typically anything tangible we want has an emotional response underneath it. So if that is someone's goal, it's probably that they want to feel love and connection. So great. Begin to make a list of all of the things that you can do to feel love and connection. It doesn't even necessarily have to be reaching out to family. There may be other ways that they can feel love and connection. They could have a yoga practice that makes them feel connected. And so make the entire list of what it would look like to begin to bring that feeling into your life. And then I would break that down into, how do I achieve this? So it could be that once a week I FaceTime my mom or my dad. And then it's that once a week I write a letter to someone. Once a week I do this. It could be really simple that every day they build in something that's different, that gives them a way to build whatever that underlying emotion is that they want to achieve. So that may be a goal that's less of a habit, or they could make it into a habit. So it could become a habit for me that every Monday on my drive to work, I call my mom. Every Tuesday, I message my 5 top friends in texting and just reach out to them. Every Wednesday, I set up a FaceTime with so-and-so. And every Thursday, I reach out to my team at work, where we just have a 15-minute get together on Zoom and just chat about life. So there's all kinds of ways that they can go about it and begin to break it down for them. I like to look at things as micro goals. I wouldn't suggest, if somebody was setting that up, if they've gone from doing nothing to then setting something up for every day, that's probably going to feel overwhelming. I tell people to take things 2 weeks at a time. So for 2 weeks, make it where maybe only on Mondays you reach out to somebody. And then the next 2 weeks, reach out on Monday and Wednesday. So they begin to do what I like to call just a habit stacking type of thing. You take one habit, give it 2 weeks to get ingrained, and then you set another one. But then the other way I look at these things too is that you also want to set the bar as low as possible. So what I mean by that is that you're not going to say, on Monday, I'm going to dedicate 2 hours to talking to people in my life. Make it 5 minutes the first time through. There are plenty of people that when they start going to the gym, their goal is just to drive into the parking lot, park, and then drive home. It gets them into the habit. The next week they go in, they check in, they walk behind the desk, and they walk right back out. They've gotten into that habit. The next time it's to go in, use the bathroom in the locker room, walk back out. So it's actually about building the behavior and the habit versus it is taking it head on and then setting ourselves up for failure because we said we had to go an hour every day. So giving themselves a small snippet, small goals, and then adjusting from there. Because whatever step you take is going to give you feedback for how to proceed. Maybe you don't like talking to your mom on Monday mornings. Some of us would love it. Some of us might hate it. So figure out what actually you enjoy about it and then make the adjustments from there.
So Holly, if I'm dealing with a destructive habit, and New Year's resolution is to try and get rid of that destructive habit, and let's use a concrete example. My destructive habit is that I'm not making enough money, and I keep talking myself out of going out there and trying to make more money. In other words, I have an adequate job or whatever, or maybe I'm not making enough to really achieve my goals. But rather than put my resume out there and really see what opportunity is really available for me, I talk myself out of it because I don't think I have the time or ability, or that anybody really wants my services. How do I put a positive habit in place that really improves me without me saying, okay, I'm just going to quit my job and figure it all out, and 3 months later I'm out of money and desperate for somebody to employ me?
Yeah, I never encourage that. There are some people that works for, and I'm always hesitant to suggest that as a strategy of just like drop it all and go see what happens. So there's a couple ways to look at this, but what I really hear when you say that, it's a lot about addressing mindset. And so mindset is really big. And so I think 2020 is a perfect example of whatever you're looking for to support your beliefs and your opinions, you will find. So when you look at your mindset, if your mindset is nobody's going to want to see my resume, this isn't going to pan out, I've reached the cap of what I'm going to make, blah, 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 that's the evidence that you're going to find in your life. So you actually have to begin to address the mindset first. However, you can address the mindset through habits. And so let me explain a little bit about why I say it this way. So whenever people get stuck in a rut, it's typically because they're asking themselves why questions. Why is it always like this? Why do people treat me this way? Why do I always make the same mistake? And why questions are triggering. They typically move people into defensive behaviors, and they can feel accusatory. It also doesn't trigger the part of the brain that actually can give you answers. It triggers the emotional side of the brain. When you move into how and what questions, you move into the neocortex. You allow your brain to come up with solutions to give it to you. And so I can begin to say, instead of why do I not make as much money as I could, I can begin to say, how can I begin to expand to find new possibilities? What else might I be missing here? What are some possibilities that could be showing up? Because when we look for possibilities, we find them. So just like when you get a new car and you think, oh, this is great, nobody's going to have a car just like mine. And then you drive down the street and everybody has the same color and make and model of your car, because your brain is now looking for it, but it wasn't looking for it before. So the quicker you can get your brain to start opening into curiosity and looking for possibilities and opportunities, then you can begin to make the changes. Now, how that ties into habits is how a habit can actually create beliefs. So if I get up every day and I say, I'm going to spend 5 minutes working on my resume for the first week, and then at the end of that week, I'm going to send my resume to 3 friends to have them look over it to see if they would make any changes. So you're not jumping into sending the resume immediately to people that could be an employer. That might be too far for your mindset to catch up. But if I worked 5 days, every 5 minutes, 5 days in a row on it, that built a belief that I'm somebody that works on my resume. And then I send it to friends. I'm someone that gets feedback on my resume. And then you can slowly build these habits in, or these small actions that build a belief that then shifts your mindset, that then sets you up for more success. So do you see how it can be this constantly circular pattern that builds more and more?
I was going to say, going back to your previous answer, what I hear you saying is that part of habit building is also improving in the habit itself. So it's not just about picking up a weight that you didn't pick up before. It's about asking yourself each time you pick it up, what can I do to use this weight even more, to do it differently, that it improves me in some other way than just picking it up.
Yes.
So my question to you is, for a lot of people who might be terrified of, even creating a resolution, because they exactly as you said, they know their resolution sucks. They've had so many resolutions fail in the past that at this point they don't even do it anymore. Why bother? What is the, real encouragement that we can get them out of that mindset into having fun with resolutions and saying, hey, it doesn't matter if it sucks. It's the that, you're making a resolution and you can find ways to, keep it going and really make it fun.
So there's a couple ways that I would look at this. The first one is to choose just one resolution out of what may eventually come to be many goals, but choose one that is really fun. For 3 years in a row, I uploaded 1 picture a day to Facebook. It was this really cool snippet of my life 3 years in a row. I put POTD, and this was back when I was in my mid-20s. And it was just this fun little journey that every day I went in looking for, what am I going to post about today? What's interesting? What's fun? What's neat? So it was a really fun resolution to keep. And I kept it for 3 solid years. So choose something that's fun. And because when you can choose something that's fun and you actually are inspired by it, then again, that builds the belief, I'm someone that keeps New Year's resolutions. And then when you begin to choose another goal, I would not choose all of them at the beginning. I would choose one. I'm going to tackle this goal at the lowest bar possible for 2 weeks. So let's say for somebody that they want to get in shape, and let's say they're past the point of just needing to drive to the parking lot. They know they can get into the gym to do something. I would say set it at least 4 or 5 days a week at least 15 minutes in the gym. At the end of 15 minutes, you are allowed to leave because you have met your goal. Most people will choose to stay longer. Nobody wants to walk in and back out in 15 minutes because they don't want to be seen as that person. There's a social pressure to it. So that's the magic of getting into the gym. So setting it really low at that 4 or 5 days, do it for 2 weeks. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, evaluate. Do I want to add a smoothie every day? I'll keep that goal the same and begin to really stack in behaviors that support whatever these big goals are. So if your big goal is just to be healthier overall, you need to get specific. If that's gym, eating, whatever, mental, it could be wanting to do better, like read more books, set the goal really low. When I started reading every day, my goal was 1 page a day. That was it. I would end up reading a chapter, but I set it at 1 page for those days that got out of my control. I would read the 1 page and put it down and check the goal off that I did it that day. So to me, that's the best way to do it when people are looking at their New Year's resolutions.
All right, I'm going to throw you a curveball here.
Okay, let's go for it.
What resolution have you had in the past that sucked?
Oh, great one. Okay, so I will give you a funny one.
Mhm.
I had one that I had told myself that, I don't remember what year it was going to be, 14 or something. I was like, this is going to be the year of spandex for me, which meant that if I put on spandex, I felt like my body looked amazing. And I blew it. It was like the worst year health and like eating wise ever. And I was so excited. I was like, this is going to be it. I'm going to have the best year in my body yet. I did not. So,
That's a fun one. Yes.
And what did you learn from that experience?
first of all, a couple things, not to set a goal that's not specific. Year of spandex was not specific enough. What I should have said was, this is goal weight. This is da-da-da. This is how I'm going to get there. I'm going to run starting off only 1 day a week. I would have broken it down into this little step. And a second thing that's really important that I didn't learn until lately is to have a tracking system of how to be able to look at, okay, I can visually see that I'm tracking this off. I have a big notepad where I track all of my workouts. I track it all with my watch. I have it in there and I begin to look at, okay, this is where it's visual in my face. So I've put in a new morning routine and I've added a couple things. And in my little morning journal, I have all of the habits written to the side. So every morning I can read them off and make sure I've gotten them done. So building in a visual system would have been a lot better for me to reach my year of spandex.
You know, it's funny. I have to bring this up. And April, I want you to chime in here. We had a previous guest who talked a lot about how relationships are about connection, relevance, and measurement.
Mhm.
And it sounds like that resolutions are a relationship with yourself in terms of improvement. And you just mentioned something that's really important, that measurement is one of the biggest things missing from resolutions, that as you create this new habit, it's a relationship with you and this behavior. And it's really about setting it up in a way that you can measure your progress easily and effectively, that it's encouraging to you. So I'm going to let April, chime in here, but April, I'm going to lead you, down this road of saying, from the standpoint of, how we even have a relationship with our resolutions, how does it come across to you in terms of like, just having a relationship with spandex?
So first of all, Miss Holly, you're going to be put on the spot with this, but I love, and for some reason your Zoom went to mute. So if you can, okay, just making sure, is that the opportunity of what Jason, there's a couple things you said first, and what I wrote down of what Holly had said is more about the time, the ability, and the belief. And when you had brought it back to our other guest and the way that he had shared some information, never mind spandex. I mean, that's just a whole conversation in itself. So I'm not even touching that one. But the gift of what I want to bring back to Holly, and I think it's going to be a valuable thing for our listeners as well, is the resolutions suck if we don't aren't committed to what the actual resolutions are about. And it's not so much that you're saying to any listener, I want you to hear that your resolutions suck, or that, your belief system sucks, or any of that. We don't want any of our listeners to hear that. What I want, and I know you want, because of the power and presence that you bring to everything that you are involved in, is you have an opportunity to remind people that if they're going to choose something, to make it smart, to make it a specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time specific, etc. I mean, I could go through the whole definitions. You're looking for the opportunity to say, because we all know the behavior is a really big deal. I loved how you commented on the fact that, why, for any coach knows that unless you have relationship, unless you have earned the ability, people are going to immediately go into defense. And so for you to recognize how we can help our listeners give them the opportunity to choose something simple, manageable, something that they can own, and they can walk into 2021 feeling success, feeling that they have something in their control, because the world we live in today feels out of control. And one of the gifts that we have as people that get to light people's way is we get the opportunity to help them discover there is things in their control, especially if they make it real. If they make it something that's, don't attempt to do 5 days when you've never done one, right?
Right.
And it goes back to that time and ability. We've got a lot of time, and everybody's got time, but how we choose, and I loved how you said it earlier, how we choose to say what matters also falls into, and that really comes back to that resolution. And I'd love for you to define what resolution means for you. And I think that will really help us wrap up and get real on purpose about where we head with this.
Yeah. So to me, resolution, if you just break it down, is being resolute, right? This is where I'm headed. And I mentioned at the very beginning, pivotal moments. For some of us, 2020 has been a year that has just kicked our tails from one end of the room to the other. And so 2021 offers that pivotal moment where people get to head into a new beginning for themselves. Even though things might not have actually changed on the outside, there is a mental shift that is naturally built into the social aspect of our world, that resolutions are made at the beginning of the year. So just being resolute of what you head into. And April, you're absolutely right. Like setting it with the SMART goals. I normally go into that, and it is really good for some people to really break it down by it. And this is my goal weight by this date with this. I like to offer people a little bit of flexibility too. Some people do really well with the structure. That's what you'll hear. I like the flexibility of saying, okay, I'm setting the bar low, 2 weeks. What do I want to do at the end of the 2 weeks? What can I add? How can I play? How can I have fun? Because if you're not feeling the resolution in it and you're not being able to bring some fun into it, that's going to be the hardest type of mix to dig yourself out of. It's about finding the joy and feeling the motivation. If you ever listen to David Goggins, though, David Goggins will tell you that motivation is crap. Right? He said it comes and goes, and it's not reliable. So what are the reliable sources you get to build in to make your resolutions actually stick? So what are the measurements? What are the concrete things? And a couple of things that I feel like are really important when people begin to look at goals is, what are the triggers you begin to create? Because if I just make a goal, but I don't set in triggers, then I'm not going to be as successful as I could be. So for some people, I know one that I used in my life was I would change into my gym clothes before I left work, because I felt like a real schmuck when I would drive past the gym in my workout clothes. I'm already in my workout clothes, go to the gym. So I would create a trigger that I would take my gym bag into work every day. I'd put it next to my desk, and I would change before I would leave. And that was a trigger. Other triggers can be alarms on your phone. I also tell people to pair their goals. So if I had one woman that she wanted to stretch, just in the morning, stretch more. So her thing was, when I get up and I turn the coffee pot on every morning, that was the trigger to then go sit down and stretch for 5 minutes while the coffee brewed. So the quicker you can tag your habits and your new goals in with something that already exists in your life, that's going to be the easiest way to achieve it. And the second thing is to make it the path of least resistance. So then look at, why don't I get up in the morning and do yoga? Well, it's cold. I don't like to get on the floor, all these things. So I know people that they began to sleep in the clothes that they would get up and do yoga. They would put a space heater on the floor where they would do yoga, and they removed every excuse. So they made it the path of least resistance to get to the goal. So that can also set people up for success. It's that I've got all of these triggers laid out. I've got visual cues. I've got alarms. I've got people that I'm accountable to. I've removed every excuse I typically use. Then it makes it so much easier to accomplish those goals. So those are some real fundamental things too, besides just like what you were mentioning, being really clear about what it is that you're going after and understanding why.
Awesome. So April, I'm going to ask this last question, then we can wrap up. But Holly, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
Great question. I am actually one of those people that I start all of my resolutions in December, so I can begin to fade in. So when I hit January 1st, I've actually already got a really good platform of behaviors already started. I just implemented a new morning with journaling, with yoga, with making sure I got drinking water early in the morning. And I set my alarm at the right time to give myself time to do those. So I've already set that up. I've already begun to lay out my gym schedule, which I'm usually pretty loyal at the gym. And I bought something at home for those days that I just couldn't make it out of the house. So I'm already actually mostly there. However, to your question, Jason, I did set a goal on my 39th birthday, which is that I would be in the best shape of my life by my 40th birthday. So that's going to be something that I look as I head into the new year. What adjustments do I need to make? Because ultimately, if we're executing on the goals that we really want in our life, eventually the question doesn't begin, what New Year's resolutions am I setting? The new question becomes, how do I reevaluate and refine and get closer to the goal? And ask the question to myself every day, is what I'm doing right now getting me closer to or moving me further away from my goal? And it becomes more seamless versus this struggle of getting the goals started. And that's ultimately where we want people to get, is that it's an ongoing conversation.
Awesome. Thank
you. Holly, there's two last things I want to say, and then I want you to share how people get a hold of you, how they get to know more about all the connections you have. And then Jason will share his and mine as well, or I'll finish that out. And then if there's anything that you thought of that you wanted to make sure we covered, you'll get to share that as we close out. Holly, the one thing I heard you say is that the opportunity is for each person to know where their target is, what they really want their visual to be. And we get the opportunity, all of us, in that opportunity to say, here's reality. Your muscle memory may not be where you want it to be, yet clarify what the measurement is so you can create that refinement and that process to get there. And so whatever their definition is, whether it be a resolution, whether it be a goal, a habit, a commitment, a measurement, a pretty dress, or to, whatever that is, that, I have a particular suit that I sit in my closet that doggone it, I will get in that doggone suit, and now, mind you, that's been a goal, a commitment that keeps moving. So, and I'm sure none of us could relate with that, right? So the opportunities for everybody listening to know that we're all completely human, and yet some things will take priority over others, and some things we will obtain because we did decide to be resolute. We did decide that was the absolute commitment for this time and season. Doesn't mean there was anything wrong. It just means that's what you showed mattered, and that's okay.
Right.
And our opportunity for everyone listening is to recognize that, celebrate where you are, celebrate that, life has its moments, and yes, sometimes it sucks, and yet we get to choose where we move from forward. Mm-hmm. So Holly, share how people can get a hold of you, how they can get to know you better, and all that fun stuff.
Well, I really don't have a web page at this moment, so it's just a simple email, and that's hollymcaudle@gmail.com. And anybody that wants to reach out, go right ahead. And I love to answer questions, and I love to respond to people. Talking about habits is one of my favorite things to discuss. And I'm always here to answer questions.
I love that. Jason, share how people get a hold of you and why they would get a hold of you.
Awesome.
Because I have relationship to ask you why.
One, Holly, thank you so much for the opportunity to interview you. You really were a fantastic guest. Again, I'm Jason Safford, founder of Exceptional Results Now and author of Winning with Exceptionalism. My new email address is founder, FOUNDER, at exceptionalresultsnow.com. And that is the easiest way to get in touch with me. You can also go to the website, www.exceptionalresultsnow.com. And yeah, we have a lot of exciting things coming for 2021. And April is a part of that. So with that, I'll hand it off to you.
So Jason and I have some partnerships. I've got quite a few different partnerships and projects, and you can learn more about me at onelightahead.com. You can also learn about all the fun things that we're working on through our partners pages. And we are excited to be a guiding light bulb moments through all the different things we get to do. And Holly, is there any question or thought you wanted to end us on?
I will share with you my favorite quote that I have in my life. And that quote is, the first step is the right step. It doesn't matter what step you take it. Any step that you take will only provide you information about how to proceed in the next step. And that may be in a completely different direction, or it may be moving full force ahead. Just take the first step. That's the one that you should stress the least about. As long as it's a step, it's movement.
Perfect. And that wraps us up. Thank you for joining us, everyone.